Hello, welcome to this new video on Java. So today we are going to discuss about exceptions in Java. So exceptions in Java. So what are the exceptions in Java? So as with any program, a program might run into an issues when the program is running. It might get some error message during its execution, or even during development you may find there are some issues with the program, or you handle certain conditions that this could go wrong, and what should the program do actually if things go wrong. So in Java there's something called exceptions. So this is called exceptions handling. So basically, if you think there's a piece of code which only handles certain inputs, and but if the user enters something else, you want to just handle that gracefully so that your program doesn't fail and it keeps working. So I'm going to show you this little example, this picture here. So in Java there is this interface, throwable interface, and there are two things which extends from that interface. One is called exception and another is called error. So all the error handling, exception handling is just based upon these classes here. So as you can see, this category of errors. So what are the errors in a Java program? So errors could be like, you have a Stack Overflow error could happen, virtual machine, JVM could give you some error, or your JVM might run out of memory. But if you think these errors are really out of your control, you cannot do anything with those actually. And in most of the situations, things will your program will terminate, or it cannot recover from those errors actually. So these are these are called really errors, because you cannot do anything with those, and you don't need to really do any handling of these errors in your code. So you can just keep that aside, so you don't have to really do anything with this part of the tree here actually. So whatever happens this side is out of your control as a developer. Okay, let's come to this left side. So there's exceptions, and in the exception there are two categories of exceptions. So one of them is called checked exceptions and another is called unchecked exceptions. So what happens? What are these checked exceptions are really? So there are exceptions which we call it is a compile time. So when you are developing a program and you write a piece of code, and when you compile the code, it will give you error, or it will force you to handle that exception, that your piece of code which you wrote needs to have some kind of exception handling, because something can go wrong in that program. So, and it forces you to do handle those exceptions. So we're going to go see some examples in IOException. That's one of the example of this checked exception. But there are unchecked exceptions, and they happen runtime. They're not at the compile time, they're runtime. When your program is running and it runs into some kind of issue, and it could throw an exception, and you could have just null pointer exception, which is very common. You have an object and the object is null, and you're trying to call some methods on that null object. So basically you can do so that throws null pointer exception. Then you have this another example is ArrayIndexOutOfBounds. You declare an array. Let's say the array is of size 5. So if the array is of size 5, it means the array indexes are basically from 0 to 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you try to access anything beyond 4, let's say you want to try index 5 of that array, it will throw this array index out of bounds because that's not defined. So this is the high level picture. You can see how these exceptions are in Java and what you should do. So for each one, so we are not going to deal with this error category here, but we're going to look at this exceptions on the checked and unchecked exceptions. So let's quickly do some example code here. Let's say, okay, so I have a program. I'm going to write a program. Let's say I want to read a file, which is stored on my local system. So in order to do file handling in Java, you have to create this new file, and let's say the file is stored on your, this is a path to some file, so I'm just going to put like text. So I have to just import this one. So this is the java.io package here, and you declare a file. Now you need, let's say you need a file writer, which is the one really deals with this file actually. So let's see. So we are not going to really do the file writing and everything, but I'm just going to show you this exception example. So let's say, so this is still an java.io package. Okay, so what, see, now if you see, I write this piece of code, I declare, I know this is a file, and I want to use this file writer to do any kind of manipulations on this file. But this is the one I was talking, this is a checked exception because it's at compile time. So my program, this is this example on this side here. Now if you notice, my program it's a compile time, it's not able to compile actually. It's saying it's a red, it's an unhandled exception type IO. So what it is telling me is this code can throw an exception, whatever the exception, because the file may not be there, or file is not readable, not writable, who knows. So but it's saying, oh, you need to handle that properly. So it's giving me some suggestions. Either you can add throws declaration to this method. You can say, oh, this method throws IOException, or other thing you can do is you can handle this exception yourself. So I'm going to handle it myself. So I'm going to surround with try catch. So in Java, if you have not done this before, there is this concept of try and catch. So basically, whatever the code you want to really, you see this is a problematic code, so you want to wrap that around this try, and then there's a catch block, that what kind of exceptions you can throw. So in this case, it knows this file writer can throw this IO exception. So I mean, if something goes wrong during this code, it will come into this here, and you can do whatever you want to this. You can handle it properly, or you can log the message. So there is problem with the file. You can just log this message, or do something based upon your program logic, what you really want to do. So, but the idea is forcing you to catch this exception. So this, this IO exception is a checked exception. Okay, so this is done. So, and another thing, while we're talking about this try catch, so if something goes wrong here, and let's say there is another line of code here, something, let's say after writer. So what happens, let's say something goes wrong in this line, then the next line will not be executed because there's an exception error at this line. So what will happen, it will come into the exception block, and whatever is inside the exception block will be executed. And there's also a block called finally, and you can also put something whatever you want to put here, that also always executed. So this block, finally will be always executed, in this case. So this is another thing you can do. So this runs irrespective of if it catch exception or not actually. So this was an example of checked exception. So I'm going to go and I'm going to show you some runtime exception. Let's say I have a string as equal to no, this is null. So you see this, you define a string and you didn't really create this, you set to null. Now let's say well, you don't even need to do that. Let's say I can say I want to find the length of the string. What's the length of the string? I run this code. So you can see this, there's no compilation errors of this one. But if I run this program, it throw NullPointerException. And this is a runtime exception. So in order to, again, you can do something if you know that, it will throw error, then you can do this, but you can also do like, if as not equal to null, then you can say s dot length, and then in that case it will just work fine now actually, because you checked it's not null. Then you find this you get this method, run this method on this one. So you can see, so basically this is runtime exception. So you have to take care of the runtime exceptions yourself. You have to make sure your code is, you anticipate this condition, this could happen. You're trying to call a method on a string, you want to make sure that string is not null. So this is one example for this unchecked or runtime exception. Let's see, we have another, let's say we have some kind of array of, let's say, okay, so this is an array of integers which has size of 3, and we know the size of 3 means the indices will be 0, 1, 2, because that's 3 size. But if I want to, I'm trying to access element 4, I'm going to try to put some value there, that's 50. Oh, sorry, it's not a, it's AAR. So that's the name of the array. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to assign a value into this 4th index of this array, and we know that it doesn't have 4th index because it has size 3, so it has only 0, 1, 2. So if you run it, it will say array index out of bounds exception came actually. So I think I just want to show these quick examples where you need it, and it can be avoided. A lot of things can be avoided. So this kind of stuff you have to take care in your program, because they are runtime exceptions. You can't, you can anticipate them, so you have to try to handle them, or not to whenever you try to assign, like in this case you're trying to assign a value to a index, you want to make sure the index is not greater than the size of that array. So this is all about this Java exceptions. Just touched a little bit, so you have to just know this high level stuff, how it works. Most of the time this kind of stuff is forced, you are forced to handle those exceptions, but there are unchecked exceptions which you have to just anticipate in a code, find out in a program that is going to happen. So you have to just make sure you handle those actually. And in addition to that, you can also create your own exceptions if you want actually. So you can extend from a class, let's say you can create your custom exceptions if you want, but these are mostly like my exception, and you have to just say superclass is just exception. So you can do those things, and you can so you can create your own exception. It extends from this one, then you can add your stuff in this one, so if you want, but I think that's very rare. You have to create your own exceptions actually. So I hope you like this video. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Otherwise I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.